All told, it was 23 days. Yeah, 23 days and just shy of 9,000 miles round trip. Yeah, it was so eventful. It's hard to explain how much fun it was. And it's been a bucket list thing of mine to do for the longest time, because back in the 70s when they were, in the mid 70s when they were building the pipeline, and the Haul Road, which it's come to be known as, Dalton Highway, everybody was like, come on, man, we're going to go up north and, make a bunch of money and work on the pipeline. And, I kind of took a different direction, worked at a local ski lift and helped build those, and then on into the service, and and then later into the film industry. But anyway, it's it was always a bucket list thing since the 90s when they opened up that Haul Road to the public, that man, I'd like to do that. And then along comes the 2000s, and now people are showing up on YouTube that they've done this ride, all the way to Alaska. I'm like, man, I got to do that before I get too old. So it was finally time. I actually bought a bike just to do it, and the adventure bikes are something I've always liked. I've got friends that own the big BMW GSs and the KTMs and the Ducati Multistradas and all these bikes, and they're all, I'm short, I'm only 5'6", and so those things are way too tall for me. I need a Apple box to get on them, and it's like ridiculous. I fall right over. So Harley Davidson came up with this bike, the Pan America, that's amazing. It's got this adaptive ride height that it drops 2 inches, when you turn the ignition on. And so a guy with short inseam like me, it's a lot more comfortable, even though it's a 560-pound wet motorcycle, I can still handle it, and they did a great job on this thing, man. It's fast, it's got 150 horsepower, and it's very, very capable. It's not a dirt bike compared to light dirt bikes, but it's very capable off-road. So I chose this thing and put some, neat Dunlop Trail Max tires on it that are not an aggressive knobby, but a knobby tire that's also street bias as well. And it worked out perfect. This thing was so much fun. So yeah, I had 23 days of just real enjoyable riding. I brought camping stuff with me, but I didn't end up camping. I stayed in hotels, because after I'd do 300 to 500 miles a day, or even more some days, I was like, okay, I want a hotel room with a shower. Yeah, comfortable bed, exactly. Talk to Claire, recharge my batteries and GoPros. I took pictures with a GoPro on my handlebar, and then a chin mount that I had up kind of a point of view. Obstacles, boy, riding a motorcycle, there's always obstacles when you you're around cars, and traffic and people dodging in and out of lanes. And I mean, that traffic is the biggest obstacle, and that's ever present on a bike. And so you really have to have your wits about you. Special obstacles with regard to this trip would probably mostly be weather and then potholes. That was really something. I mean, there's some of the roads were really, really in bad shape, and especially in the Yukon. There's road construction everywhere, pilot cars, this and that, and there's actually up on the Dalton, there's what they call these heaves. They're like sinkholes because the permafrost is melting, and so they're constantly working on the road because it's just sinking out from underneath it. And there's potholes the size of a trash can. I mean, you drive a bike right into it, you could really get hurt, And I mean, it was evident with cars on the side of the road that had just been left there. Yeah, it's kind of a wake-up call. Weather's always an obstacle. We also had the fires. Going north through BC, unfortunately, some of the fires, that was I mean, they're still going on today here, back east and even in the Midwest, as far west as the Midwest, there's unhealthful air quality right now in the U.S. just from the Canadian wildfires in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And but for me, it was up in B.C., going through British Columbia, some of the most beautiful roads I'd ever been on in my life. You couldn't see an eighth of a mile, and so that was an obstacle. And my lungs always, being a product of the 60s, my lungs are toast anyway, so it was not fun with that air quality as bad as it was. I was definitely, when I got into clean air, doing breathing exercises while I was riding, breathing very, very deeply and exhaling as deeply as I could, just clearing that crap out of my lungs. So, yeah. I chose to go in May because I wanted to go before the crowds. The tourist season up there is just horrendous. There's coming home, I even took videos of motorhomes that were coming in scores, motorhomes, trailers, campers, you name it. And just not just hundreds, but thousands. I mean, it's crazy how much traffic there is, coming north when I was going south. So I definitely went early, and I wanted to go early because I wanted to avoid that. Because I'm, kind of a throw a dart kind of a guy. I don't want to have to plan. I don't, when I'm on the road or on a vacation, I don't want to plan anything. I want to take it in as it comes, meet people or whatever, and go to places. And it's getting later in the day, I better start looking for a room, that kind of thing. So, and again, I had my camping gear, so I was never concerned about whether I could get a place or not. I always had a place, on the back of my bike, so I could stop whenever I want or go whenever I want, so it was really my kind of style, my style of riding. And I always go solo because it's just so much easier. You gotta stop and pee, or you gotta, you don't want to stop at all. You want to just keep on trucking, so it's just the way I prefer to do it, and sometimes I want to take it real easy and enjoy the scenery, and other times I want to ride aggressively. I got some nice corners coming up, and I want to hit it. And so, it's just easier and more fun for me to travel alone on a bike. And it's just it's just the way it is for me. It's just part of my soul. I've been into them all my life, and in spite of the injuries, the things that motorcycling has brought to me in my life is just undescribable. The people I've met because of it, and because of them, and you just meet the nicest people. And everywhere I went, people were asking me from the very beginning, where are you heading? Because obviously my bike is packed up full of stuff. And I said, Alaska. And so, yeah, I ended up, when I stopped to stay with Josh and Michelle in Bellingham, he had some tape, and we got some tape, 2-inch white gaffer's tape, we'd call it, and camera tape, and I put it on the side of my motorcycle with Alaska, with an arrow pointing forward, so it was on the left side of the bike. And because people would ask me, where are you going, and I could just point to my bike. I'm going to Alaska, all the way up through Canada. And yeah, and then there was Bob. He was a great guy. He's a trucker up in the Yukon. And I pulled in for gas, and this guy gets out of his truck and approaches me, and he was so excited about the Pan America. He says, that's going to be my next bike. He has a couple of Harleys anyway, but the traditional Harleys, air-cooled. And he says, man, I want one of those adventure bikes so much. How do you like it? And I'm telling him, I just think it's amazing. It's the motor company's getting with the times. They're liquid-cooled and, variable valve timing. It's an amazing machine. Very capable. So I'm telling him all about the bike, and he's just asking more and more questions, and just a really friendly guy. And Finally, I start pumping gas, and he takes off and goes inside. And I fill up some pretty expensive gas. I think it was about $38 to fill my tank, and I go in to pay for it. And I told the gal, yeah, pump 2, and she says, oh, you don't owe anything. I said, no, I'm on pump 2. I think it's $38 or something, and she goes, no, that guy paid for it. And I go, what? You're kidding me. And I walked back out there, and I said to the guy, hey, what the F are you talking about, man? I'm looking up at him. He's in his truck. He goes, hey, I'm just paying it forward, dude. Every day I like to treat somebody nice, and I just like, oh my goodness, you Canucks, you guys are amazing. You are stereotypical of the nice Canadian, He's just such a nice guy. Yeah. So Bob bought my gas that day. that fill up. It was pretty amazing, And then I met people all along the way. I met indigenous ladies that were asking where am I going, and we're in Alaska. We're from Alaska, and I told them where I was going, and they go, oh yeah, you got to go here, you got to go there, and all about the food that they eat and this and that, and it's just so exciting, and everyone is so helpful. Canadians I think they're the nicest people on the planet, they are neighbors, and they even call me that. They see a California plate and they go, how you doing, neighbor, and it's just warm and comforting, just really cool. Gives you a nice feeling about humanity when you go places like that, and people are so friendly. Yeah. The people on the road were not bad. People on vacation tend to slow down and enjoy the scenery, so especially the truckers up on the Dalton, you hear these horror stories about how that highway is, throwing rocks and this and that, but I found them to be really courteous. I'd see a big truck coming. I'm on the highway, and I'd pull over to the right and slow down, and sometimes even stop if it was a narrow section or a rocky section, dry or this and that, or maybe your dust clouds following this guy. Sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. So depending on the situation, but the trucks, they would almost inevitably slow down and, throw less stuff at you, and they would wave and this and that. And when I pulled into Deadhorse and met a guy that was that offered to. I was taking a picture of the Aurora Hotel sign, because it showed 32 degrees and the date and this and that. And I'm cycling through it, and the guy goes, "You want me to take a picture of you?" This guy just gets out of his truck. He says, "Can I get a picture of you in front of the sign?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be cool." It's like, it was just, just people are just so friendly, and this other guy says, "Hey, let me give you a ride around. I'm not doing much, and he took me on a tour around Deadhorse, which it's nothing to see really. It's an oil fields. It's an oil town, and that's all that it's about. Halliburton and other oil companies own the land there, and it's all about mining oil. And so, it's. But the people are just all so nice. I would sit down and talk to them in the mess hall, and they're just really friendly. They all want to know where you're from, and have you ever been to Alaska before? And everybody's just cool. Yeah. Well, I didn't run into any, but I sure had some close calls. Actually, I did run into one, unfortunately, a chipmunk. That was sad. The first time I've ever killed an animal on a motorcycle, and you're cruising along at 50, 60 miles an hour, and this thing darts in front of you and thump. I was just horrified. It really made me sad for many minutes afterwards, because I was thinking, well, that poor little sucker is somebody's mom or dad or brother or sister, not going to come home to its family. And it was sad, he hit a chipmunk, and, that it just kind of, I wouldn't say it ruined my day, but it was not pleasant, and it was not fun. And But as far as other wildlife, my goodness, the abundance of wildlife. I mean, I don't know how many black bears. I lost count. I would say anywhere from 20 to 40 black bears I saw, and then I saw one grizzly and about 4 red bears. And I saw a red fox, a couple of them. I saw an Arctic fox up on the highway in the Brooks Range. That was the day I was coming back down. Lots of fowl. The fowl are cool because they fly in pairs, and the geese and the other birds, and it's really neat to see them landing in pairs and taking off in pairs, and the abundance it's indescribable how many birds there are up there. And what else? The elk, a lot of elk, deer, wild horses. I saw mountain goats, bison, porcupines, lots of porcupines. I don't think I've ever seen porcupines in the wild before, and see them on the side of the road scurrying along. It was kind of cool. And then other tourists that would stop. And a lot of people, when there's wildlife, they'll stop and they'll put their flashers on, so that there's something there, and there might be a caribou crossing the highway, and so they'll let people know. And that's neat because, other people with long lenses and stopping and getting out of their cameras and filming wildlife. And so that's when I could stop and get shots of them, and it's pretty neat. I didn't have any, I had one close call with a caribou up on the highway, the Dalton. At the end of the ride up, it was probably close to 11 o'clock at night, and of course it's light out. You're above the Arctic Circle, so it's light, but the clouds were right on the road. I mean, it was foggy, just totally socked in. And so that was a bummer. It was really cold. The Brooks Range was about 28 degrees. And I was cold because I didn't put on warmer gloves early enough because it was cold and I didn't want to stop. So I just kind of endured it. And then all of a sudden you get to the last 65, 70 miles are paved. And it's like, okay, you're off this crazy dirt road and it's paved. And it's paved as like any nice highway here in California. I mean, it's paved, and so you pick up the pace. And that was, good and bad. I mean, picking up the pace when it's super cold and wet here in a cloud, it's colder, So, because just that air's flowing over your windshield factor, Even though I had my vest on high, my heated grips on high, it was like I was still cold. And then back to the caribou, all of a sudden like I said, I picked up the pace, and then from left to right, this guy bolted in front of me, and it was a close call. I mean, I saw it just at the last second when he got on the road, and I grabbed a handful of brakes and slowed down and probably avoided him by not more than 15 or 20 feet, and at 20 feet. But at 45 miles an hour, I was going faster. It was frightening. And that guy, I frightened him too because he slipped. His hooves didn't get any traction on that pavement. And so he went down on his butt and skidded across the road. And so then I stopped. My GoPros were already spent. The batteries were gone because it was at the end of the day. And again, I did not want to stop for anything because I was cold. And it wasn't about to charge, throw in a charged battery. That was it. I just wanted to get there. Well, that was the most the scariest interaction, that's for sure, with animals. I did have a close call with a bird, and it was, I don't even know what it was, but boy, he flew in front of me, and that was close. I was kind of preparing for impact, but I missed him. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting when you're on a motorcycle and you're around all that wildlife. It's wild. Yeah. The Aurora Hotel. That's an interesting place. I mean, it's very industrial-like, and again, it's set up for the people that are up there working. It's set up for the workers, I mean, you come in and they require you put booties on because your boots are all full of mud, everybody's up there, and so you put these booties on, you come in the place, and the food is free. I mean, it's an expensive $250 a night room, and it's very small and very, there's a TV, but that's it, and I think there might have been internet. I can't remember. Maybe there wasn't. But it was. It's very basic, but the food was great. The food was really good, and I met some fun people inside the place. Met another motorcyclist that was. He and I were the first couple. I remember the gal at the desk said, "Well, you guys are early ones, we haven't had any motorcycles yet," and they expect to get lots of them because, that's what people do these days, ride up the Dalton Highway for no reason other than to just say they've been to the Arctic Ocean. I didn't get to get in the Arctic Ocean because unfortunately, part of the bad thing about going in May was the tourism part of it didn't start for, I think, till June. And so I was like 10 days away from the tour bus that would take you actually the last 5 miles to the ocean. So I didn't get to dip my feet into the Arctic, which was kind of a bummer. But it was so cold, and the weather was just socked in. One good thing is it was late enough that I missed minus 22 degrees by a week and a half. In a week and a half, it warmed up 50 degrees to 32. And so, my picture of the Aurora sign is 32 degrees, and it was minus 22 just a week and a half before. So I really got lucky that I didn't go earlier. And had I gone 10 days later, I could have made it to the Arctic. And also the day before I got there, they said it was sunny and beautiful. So it can change so quickly. And 3 days were just, socked in. And I know it was 3 days because I was told by somebody else the next couple of days were also socked in. But anyway, it was the Aurora Hotel. Quite a place. They've got plug-in charge points for the cars to plug in their block heaters, and so I put on a battery tender on my bike just to make sure it was capable of starting. Filled up with that expensive fuel down the street, and got my picture of the Deadhorse store where you in front of the sign. Even got a Today Show with Willie Geist mug shot. Yeah, but hasn't aired yet. I don't know, maybe we didn't upload that correctly to that TV show. But anyway, that was kind of fun. Yeah, Coldfoot Camp. That's it's just a stopover spot. It's like a truck stop, and it's muddy and messy, and another $200 a night, tiny little 8-foot room, and not even a TV. The only thing you got there was a shower, and that was it. And the food wasn't that great, but it was okay. It was you're not looking for gourmet when you're in a place like that. You're not some place you take your wife to. It's But I met some interesting people there too. There was a guy that was in the Coldfoot Camp in the morning. I come out and my bike had tipped over against one of those 8x8 railroad ties, and it was leaning on that because that permafrost is melting, and so the side stand gave way underneath the bike, and so in the morning it was over on its side, and crap, what am I going to do? So I went over, and there was a helicopter firing up, and some guy that was working on the helicopter crew, and he came over and helped me pick up the bike and get it out of the soft ground over onto some terra firma, and turned out to be a nice guy at Coldfoot Camp. it's an interesting place. You know, you meet a lot of characters, and I only saw one or two motorcycles though. There were people. It wasn't the season yet for it, but the two bikes I did see, a guy and a gal, both on BMWs, and they'd already been up to Deadhorse, and they were on the way back down, so they were just ahead of me. First couple of the season. I think they were from back east Chicago, I think they said, some area. A nice couple. Yeah, that's it. The James B. Dalton Highway, you know, they named her after the guy, the architect of the thing, you know, helped build it in the 70s, you know, and again, it's for the haul road, it's for the pipeline. It's what they made the Ice Road Truckers series after, you know. It's one heck of a crazy road. You know what? It was wonderful, actually. I mean, at the beginning, it was nuts because they've got these water trucks that are filled with water and calcium chloride that they put in there, and that's to stiffen up the ground. It hardens up the ground to make a kind of a temporary road. And so they water down for the dust, but it's mud while it's wet. And I mean, they water it down, not just a sprinkle, it's like a flood of water. And so when you first get on the Dalton Highway, there's a sign, and you're starting, and I'm all excited, and okay, I got my gas and I'm ready to go. Yes, head up to Coldfoot. And so I got on this highway, and all of a sudden the pavement ends and it drops off, and I go, here I go. And then I come to my first, this was only 3 or 4 minutes into the ride from that sign, and all of a sudden I come to my first hill, and they had just watered it. And this is my very first experience, and my bike is sliding, it's fishtailing like crazy. I have to stand on it to get control. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if I've got to do 450 miles of this, I don't think I can make it. I was scared. I was like, my God, this is nuts. And then I just kept the speed up and kept it going. I was remembering back a friend of mine in South Africa riding some muddy, crazy, and sandy stuff on some dunes, and he said, man, just keep it up. Don't stall it. Don't stop. Just keep the gas on. And it's so funny because that's what came to mind, and I just kept the gas on it and kept on going, and finally got some traction and got going and got into some drier stuff, and was able to sit back down for a minute, and okay, well, here I go, and I'm gonna do this. And then it got better, and as the minutes turned into hours, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna make this. It's a long haul, and then now you're thinking about different things. The wildlife and seeing bears and seeing elk and caribou, and like, wow, man, this place is great. And so you're just all the stuff that's going through your mind. I'm going up this highway, and it was pretty doggone fun. Just very exciting. Yeah. Well, again, it was just, I just wanted to get there. As cold as it was, at that point, it's just, you're in not survival mode, but it was ridiculously cold. It was like 28 degrees. I'm looking at my bike, and there's even a cold weather warning on the dash. I was laughing to myself thinking, Harley Davidson, yeah, you don't need to tell me that, man. I know it's cold, because it was like my vest wasn't even enough, and I'd finally stopped. I just said, okay, I got to get warmer gloves on, but it was a little bit late for that. I wish I'd put them on earlier. The way home, way down the next morning after a night and at the Aurora and all that, and I actually put on 2 electric vests. I had 2 of them, and I had heated gloves, heated grips. I was warmer socks. I was prepared for the ride down, and so the ride back down, and again it was in the high 20s. it wasn't bad because I was prepared for it, and I also knew I was mentally prepared for it, and I knew that I'm only going to get into warmer weather as I go south, heading down they call it the North Slope, heading towards the Adigan Pass. That was a remarkable experience too. So that highway was just fantastic, and then you're just thinking of different things. I'm thinking about the wildlife, and I saw that Arctic fox, and that was very eventful. I think I got a picture of that. It wasn't a great one, but I think there was one. Yeah, so it was a kind of a trip of a lifetime. I mean, you don't. It was surreal after I bombarded through this thing, and 3 weeks later, and all of a sudden then I'm home, and I'm going, oh my God, just days ago I was in this crazy place, and here I'm back in Capistrano Beach, and warm weather, and back with my wife and everything, and but the trip was just indescribable. I mean, it was so much fun. I would never want to do it with other people, and I don't know that I would do it again. I wouldn't mind going back up there, and if I were to do it, I would probably take the Dempster Highway, which is the Canadian side that you can actually ride all the way to, I think it's called Tuktoyaktuk. It's, you can actually drive a car or a bike right to the Arctic Ocean up the Dempster on the Canadian side. If I were to do it again, I would probably do that. It's also a little better road and more well kept, because it's not the oil production and the big trucks that are wiping out the other road, so yeah, if I were to do it again, I'd probably do that. But I don't know, it's as I get older, in my 70s, it's like enough is enough. I'll go somewhere else, And also, as I get older, I don't need extreme weather anymore either way. I don't like extreme hot or extreme cold. When I was coming down, I went through Vegas, I came down through Montana and Idaho and had some extreme weather in Idaho. Hard rain, serious rain. I probably have some video of that. That was something. I even had a fuse go out in the bike because of the wet weather. My fault under the seat where I have a plug in. I didn't have it capped, so I think it got a short. Took out a fuse. I also had a flat out in Montana. Went over something sharp and put a puncture in my tire. So that was a bit of a deal that day. And I went and got I patched the tire, and then I got some, a guy helped me and took me to the nearest little store, and I bought some Fix-A-Flat and threw it in there. And then I rode like 40 miles with Fix-A-Flat in my tire, 15 pounds of pressure, way too low. But it got me into Montana, where I bought a new tire. Yeah, that was a good thing. So, it was a great trip. For me, I just take things as they come. There's issues, I figure it out along the way. Try to be prepared as best you can, and it was very adventuresome. Just a great trip, all in all. Would I do the same trip again? Probably not. But I've got no regrets whatsoever. And that bike's in for service right now. But it did well. I ate up a chain. That calcium chloride that they put on the road is very caustic, and that wiped out the drive chain on the Harley. I'll tell you, I had to replace that. That thing was absolutely shot when I got home. So I put a new chain on it right away. Oh, I named him Dalton. Yeah, named it after the Dalton Highway. So yeah, I refer to that one as Dalton. Yeah, today coming to this interview, I brought my Beamer, which is the Asphalt Missile. And then, I had my Italian girlfriend, the Ducati. And then the fun bike is the Norton Commando. And I have Madge, which is a 62 BMW, short for Black Magic Woman. It's black and BMW, so I named that one Madge. So yeah, I always name my motorcycles. Not always, but most of them. Yeah, Dalton. That's really a macho name, you know, and it's a pretty macho bike. You know, he's very capable. Got me all the way to Deadhorse and back. That's pretty fun.